get a time.
We're good. Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. It's 5:37. 3 commissioners, chief's here, the 2 deputies, and Lisa Martin. And we'll call the meeting to order. First thing on the list is correspondence.
None.
You have none? Okay.
No correspondence.
Okay, building committee.
So, Lisa, do you want to report out, since you're on the building committees, of what happened or occurred at the last building committee meeting?
Sure.
Thank you.
At the last building committee meeting, we basically took a vote on, after having reviewed the site evaluation report by Lorero. The majority of the members did indicate or vote that they liked the Sanborn Road site. There was one vote against, and the remaining ones voted for the site. That's it in a nutshell. But I had some, I don't want to continue on it. You want to go, I have some other comments, but they're not related directly to that meeting.
Okay, so, Paul, you attended that meeting.
I did.
I guess you may have some remarks about it or whatever.
I think you brought up, Lisa, a good point there about maybe postponing it this year and looking into further things because of the number of calls, where they are and everything. And I think you brought that up.
I did. But I also brought up, I guess, I mean, I think that this is a better construction site over at Sanborn Road, but it's really up to the fire commissioners to determine where is the best location when it comes to operations. Because I don't think myself or others on the building committee, unless you're a firefighter, are experienced enough to say, okay, this is a better site based on call volume. I think we have to rely on our fire department.
So you really never got information on that.
No, but the other thing that and I did make a comment, but we really, if we're going to pursue Sanborn Road, you really need to own the site before you continue design, because otherwise you're doing the same thing we've done over and over, where you go to the voters with a plan, but you don't own the site, and you're spending taxpayer money on design that you might not get that site. So then that's my, I'm here as a taxpayer saying that. I said it at the meeting. And one thing that came out in that meeting that I didn't get till after the meeting was Matt Osher said something very interesting, and I did not click in the meeting. He said, what is the value of Center Street? He said, I looked it up and it's $350,000 on Zillow. And Zillow's pretty accurate. So, after I thought, well, yeah, and what is the value of the site up on Sanborn Road? Has that been determined? Because if you look at the report, Park Street, they're saying the site work is $914,000. Sanborn Road, they're saying is $669,000. But then when you look at the value of Center Street, plus the cost of tearing it down, Sanborn Road cost more by about $200,000, because you figure $350,000 for the value of Center Street, $100,000 maybe more to demo it. So you're giving up we're not looking at the total cost. That being said, I'm okay with the cost. I still think Sanborn Road is a better site, but I don't understand why we wouldn't just I don't know the details of your arrangements with the town of Tilton. I don't know why we wouldn't say that maybe Sanborn Road is worth $350,000 and you just give them the site. I don't understand why Tilton Northfield Fire Department is responsible for tearing it down, because that comes with a whole can of worms on tearing it down, because you just can't you can't tear it down. It's protected. I know nobody wants to believe it, but it is protected by the Section 106 of the Federal Historic Preservation Act, and you have You have to mitigate it if you tear it down. People will come out of the woodwork, chaining themselves to the station to save it, because it's part of the history. You laugh, but I've done this on numerous bridges, okay? The bridges are falling into the river, and you can't tear it down without going through the Section 106 process. And that takes at least a year. And it costs money. There's historic reports, you have public hearings, you have, it's craziness. And I don't know why we as the fire department, why the fire department would want to go through that. Why don't we just hand over the building and say, here you go, Tilton. It's worth $350,000. Do with it as you feel fit.
What's that statute you're citing?
Section 106, Federal Historic Preservation Act. I've done it so many times, and we've tried to say, oh, we don't need to do that. You need to do it because somebody's going to call you out on it. So I'd rather be right transparent.
Paul, can I respond
Go
on a
ahead.
couple things?
Go ahead.
I think, we the question about looking at response times, I think we never had that conversation because the charge to the committee was to come up with a proposal for Park Street. So the assumption on response times was, or I guess it wasn't an assumption, it would just be the response times would change because we would be moving to that location, so there was no reason to spend a lot of time looking at call response times above and beyond what we've done in the past and already knowing to some degree where the calls are located. And then that charge changed when the commissioners asked the committee to look at the Sanborn Road property. And part of that conversation was the Sanborn Road property wasn't available for consideration back when the last committee was reviewing sites. Now all of a sudden it is available. And so we convinced ourselves to do due diligence, we'd have to look at both sites.
You did, yeah, I agree.
But we never brought the conversation back to how would the difference in those two sites impact response time. That never came back up as an important part of that conversation. The commissioners then approached, sort of on another topic, the commissioners approached the town of Tilton and asked them if they would do a land swap for that piece of property for the Center Street property. And they came back with the proposal saying, all right, if you give us the Center Street property with the building removed and...
Wait, is that non-public or is that?
No, that's been publicized.
Okay, sorry.
No, sorry, good point. If we gave them that piece of property with the building removed and the lot paved in exchange, and obviously knowing that we would have to build there first so we could move there and then do that. That was the sort of the position the town of Tilton was in. So we never talked about purchasing the land up there first and then selling them that piece of property. We never talked about not giving them that piece of property. Our request to them was if we could do a land swap.
The other thing that, and I did bring it up with the town of Tilton, when they got that land up there, they did promise, and people they're gonna remember they promised it was gonna be a rec center for kids, the other piece of it. And now they're reneging on their promise.
Well, it was a football field, but a football field will not fit on the available space there. It's been,
Did it actually say football?
yes.
Okay.
I know in one of these printouts, I think.
They're still showing some recreational
There's something
area
behind,
towards the back.
in the portion that we would not own or use, there would still be room for the town to put some type of recreational facility in whatever size piece of land. Just saw a picture of it, I didn't get the measurements.
think it showed it in one of the.
Yeah, it's here, it's on the next to last page of the
Yeah,
I don't
geotech
think
site
it's very,
evaluation.
finally, it's very sloppy, but.
it's there, it's on the plan, it's just,
That would be,
may I add something? So my only point is we should not continue design until we own the land. And look into your concerns as well, the response time. That- we're so late anyway, to try to ram this through to March meeting, it's just not,
You're
we're
right.
just,
People can
we're
come up with these
doing the-
questions.
we have the chance to do it right, let's do it right. Let's not just keep running in a direction, think it through, make sure that we can get that property. I'm not against giving up Center Street, and I'm not against it, but you have to do it right. I believe that that site is a better construction site. I'm not experienced enough to say it's a better response site. I would have to divert that to you. But I think to run with design before you own the property is not fair to the taxpayers, and they will thank you with a no vote. If you don't, I think we need to do it right. I'm not saying don't pursue that, but I think if you're gonna pursue the site, pursue the site. But stop design, because you're spending money on design when you don't, on a site that you don't have.
To be honest with you, I think the town of Tilton, they had this option right in the beginning, and they waited until midway, till we started getting midway down there, then they threw it in there. Why don't we do this? Yeah, now I'm not saying they did it on purpose, but I thought they thought about it, and then they should have done it right in the beginning. Said, look, we'll do this here, but they waited and waited and waited. Then when they found out we were pursuing that, going right after it, that's when it came in.
I seem to have a different recollection
Yeah.
of that process. But,
I have my sense on that is when, talking to people both in Northfield and Tilton, was that to get over the Tilton residents who are not going to be supportive of a one-station solution over in Northfield, that to appease them, they would be looking at two-man stations. And one of them could be that one over Park Street, and the other one could be Sanborn Road. And the very strong opinions about Sanborn Road would be a great place to have one of the two stations. Of course, we all know that, we're not going to be able to build two stations at the same time, cost-wise, in my opinion. And I think there's a lot of people out there who don't have an appreciation for how much a station's going to cost, because they don't have an appreciation for what a fire station is. And we've seen that with, we built a nice garage over there that's been storing equipment, and people refer to it as the Northfield Station. Well, it's okay, it says fire department on it, it's a fire station, but it's not really what I would classify as a functioning fire station. It's a garage that holds a bunch of equipment. And we've done that in town. Tilton did that when we built the police station up here, just up the street, as a, pretty substandard police station. And Northfield's got the same concern now. Is that what you would call a police station? And obviously they're looking at, what that might look like. So I think a lot of people don't understand that when you build a fire station, it has to have, all these things in it, and
Gotta
that
have
costs money.
people. Because if you can put a station wherever you want it, but if you haven't got people to go there,
Well, it's like,
useless.
well, make it 2 floors. Well, then you have to have 2 staircases and an elevator. Well, why do you have to have that? I mean, they're firemen. They don't need an elevator. Well, unfortunately, you have to have an elevator whether you want it or not. And, people just don't understand the cost of building what a modern fire station is and what it costs. And so why can't you just throw a couple up and we'll have 2 stations? And then,
I have a question. I don't know how to phrase it, so I'm just gonna, it might be a statement, it might be a question, but somewhere there'll be some in there. In previous discussions, it's been mentioned that the call department is primarily Northfield based.
Historically, call members have lived closer to the Northfield station than would be a station up there.
So, if,
Fair statement, Paul?
It is,
Yeah.
because the population is in
Well,
this area.
in the type of housing, we're typically drawing young people in.
Right.
Young people typically have apartments, and there are many, many apartments, and we've had many, many firefighters live in those apartments over the years.
well, the reason for my question is, if and I've thought of this when it's been brought up, of a one station on Sanborn Road, what would that mean for the future of the call division or department within the department?
If I could answer, having been a call firefighter for a few years, that would be ugly. Because of the demographics, the layout of Northfield, we get to sneak down back roads and side streets to get to that station. I dread the thought of 7 people having to try to work their way
Right.
across
You gotta go
exit
School
20.
Street, loop around and come back down.
Deal with the traffic, the whole bit, and we try to encourage our call firefighters to respond in a non-emergency mode more than we ever used to. So not only will they not be responding probably they would get much more interrupted trying to get from point A to point B up there. Is that a fair statement? And
I would
don't
say
want-
so, yeah.
So,
I agree with
so
you.
far as the call people are concerned, that's a good location.
And I think the committee, and, Lisa, correct me if I'm wrong, the committee was looking at it from the standpoint, if we were to choose the Sanborn Road property, we wouldn't do anything with the Park Street station at this time. And we would continue to use it like it's being used with some equipment there, with the call firefighters still responding there. And that allowed the Sanborn Road station to maybe not need as many garage bays, because we would continue to utilize that location. And that's why in the proposal, the building's a little bit smaller up at Sanborn Road than it would be down at Park Street, because you wouldn't be replicating all the bays that you have, because you would continue to have those down there.
But I think that the Sanborn Road, I don't know what you want to call it, proposal, suggestion, had housing a majority of the equipment on Sanborn Road. I mean,
It would be your admin, it would be your living facilities, and it would have your primary response vehicles.
but, so, one of the statements that people make, as we are set up now, is if they come out of Center Street, I couldn't think of the name of the station, they come out of Center Street, they go ambulance run, okay? Now, we all know, Lisa may not know, but a lot of our calls we get, there's pretty good, darn good chance if they get one call, they're gonna get another call. So they get that second medical call, now they have to go down, get the ambulance, right? I mean, I'm assuming, so please correct me if I'm wrong, they have to go down to,
That's correct.
they have to go down there, which takes time. And that, so I believe that the idea was at least you would have
Both of your ambulances.
both ambulances and both engines at Sanborn Road.
No, I wouldn't put both engines.
Okay. Well, I don't know what pieces of equipment you would put.
We have to have both the ambulances there. We have to have at least one engine there.
Yeah.
We probably need the boat and the pickup there. That's the bare minimum.
Yeah.
So that being said, I think we're starting to get on the same wavelength of, remember, everything we have now fits. It's undercover.
Right.
That needs to be undercover. So we got space requirements that now fit our needs for the equipment. Could it be better? Sure. So if I could back up a little bit, we've been at this a long time. I think this is the 8th or 9th time we've tried to do this. And every time we hear the word Taj Mahal, wrong town, right town, you know, and I kind of sit back and say, okay, well, where's this all going in the future? Northfield, if I'm not mistaken, typically in an economic boom, residentially grows about 20% every time there's an economic boom. The town of Tilton, you know, commercially continues to grow with hotels and all that stuff, and everybody in Northfield figures I don't pay taxes because it's all free because of all that. I got news for you. They send me a bill every year. But also remember, historically, we, for years, provided a substation, supported a substation in the Winnisquam area to, you know, support that end of town and some of the higher tax dollars. Now, tax dollars mean nothing to us in the fire service other than a source of revenue. It's where are the calls? We've done this 8 or 9 times. We have not come up with a win yet. Where do we go in the future? I think things are going to continue to grow in Northfield, and things will probably continue to grow in the town of Tilton, probably a little bit residentially, but Northfield will continue to, I think, explode residentially. What happens to the fire service? Well, it ain't looking good. We're fighting to get people to apply for full-time jobs. We're fighting to get, call firefighters. 3 or 4 of your most active call firefighters are either age 60 or over. Great people, they do a fantastic job, and we wouldn't be without them. So are we going to continue to fight or try to get call people? Because, Paul, when you and I started, there were 45 members of that department. And so what's going to happen to the call force? Well, they're going to be hard to come by. And I know nobody wants to hear it, but in the near future, I think we're going to be asking for more full-time people to pick up what the call people just can't do, because the demand that you put on call people, most of the call people we have been through almost all the same courses as our permanent firefighters have, but they did it on their own time. Who wants to do that? To sit through a 250-hour firefighter 1 class, a 250-hour, and I'm close, EMT class. Those people are going to be hard to come by. So I think eventually, and then the demographics between the two communities, Northfield doesn't want to lose it, Tilton doesn't want to lose it. We've heard, uproars in the past. Will those continue? That Northfield wants to secede from the district. Those all add things that, I think I have to think about. But I remember being on 4 or 5 of the committees throughout the years, and we always sat down and said, we got to design this station, because where are we going to be in 20 years? I had no dream in my notion that 47 years later, we're still in the same place. No idea we'd still be there. So, we got to come up with a win. And Lisa, absolutely right. I think we got to have at least a commitment on the property, or know what we could do with the property, for someone to say, yeah, that's the right place. Because if you throw it out for a vote and 90% of the people say that's the wrong place and you already own it, oh shit. I think what could be a win is, reduce the size of the bays that go on Sandburn Road. It would increase our bay capacity by two big bays. So 2 and 2, one behind the other, which would accommodate certainly what we need to do. Design it with the idea that, hey, if things change and grow, add on to the bay space, you know, and then truly put in a plan of coming up with, in the near future, to accommodate more full-time firefighters. I know we don't want to hear it, but I think it's a reality that's coming, to accommodate 2 people there. And now I think you've got a more reasonable spacing between the 2. If you're going to have 2 stations, you're going to want them apart, not here downtown and down there. I truly believe, and this may rub some people the wrong way, the other thing is I'd like to see us modify the apparatus and equipment fund to possibly have it so that some of those funds could be used to finance a bond. That fund, we're in pretty good shape. I know fire chiefs throw daggers at me every time I bring this up. But I mean, we got 2 new engines, a lot of trucks good. Ambulances, we rotate every 5 years. We're not due for another major piece of equipment to purchase in 2.5 years, which will be the ambulance. 300,000, chief? Is that what, no, 350? Oh, that much now?
405.
But the point being is we're approaching $1 million in a fund that probably won't have any major expenditures. I know we upped it this year, but could we look at financing or pulling $100,000 a year, whatever the magic number is, and then that helps us with, oh my God, a $5 million building, $6 million building. Yeah, but in the end, that building in tax dollars money is only, we can reduce that by $1 million over a bond over 10 years. Then I think you're starting to come up, you know, with a winner, because we haven't had a winner yet, and we've tried everything. Again, I sat on the first committee, and $350,000 for an 8-bay fire station sleeping for 6 was too much money. You know, now that was 40 some odd years ago. You know, and what do we got to do to appease these? Because I don't think there's anybody that thinks that that building is adequate. So, just my own opinion. I don't represent anybody else in the department but myself in that statement or long drawn-out speech.
And I think we can all agree that there's, you know, right, we want to move out of Center Street. We all agree on that. And that we need better facilities. But all those other things, right, there's no easy answers. There's no perfect location for a fire station. There's no cheap solution to afford it. There's no government money to pay the bond for it. And all those things you said, I think, are true. You're going to have a harder and harder time having qualified personnel, aging population, and if the population grows, it's a growing aging population. So you're going to have more medical calls. All those things. I just wanted to add, you know, Paul, I think you were at the meeting, I heard. I was. And I'd certainly love to hear your input. I didn't get to watch the meeting yet. I see minutes from the meeting. I thought long and hard. Paul asked, I wasn't going to be at the meeting because I was out of town, so I chatted with Paul and I said, I'm going to send you an email with, you know, my thoughts. And I talked to a few people and thought about it, and I came up with, you know, are we going to be able to? Well, let me back up. What order do I use? We did exactly what Lisa said. We looked at the proposals that they gave us based on cost, without taking into consideration things like how big the building is, how many square feet it is. They just took and looked at the 2 sites and what it would take to put a building on there based on their initial space needs study. We didn't review the space needs. We haven't gotten to that point yet, so we don't know how big these buildings are. And so we're looking at data, and all we're comparing is the site work cost and the fact that the building up there will be smaller. So I'm sitting there going, okay, well, it's going to cost less. That's easier to get a bond passed. Less disruption to the fire department because we won't be disrupting the Park Street Station during
Continues to run.
construction.
Yep.
But then I had all those same questions, because we talked about if you move to Park Street, you're gonna increase the response time for a certain number of calls. How many of those are, what they are, we don't know.
Yeah, we do know, actually.
Okay, good. And if we move up here to Sanborn Road, we're gonna increase response times to a certain number of calls.
Yeah.
But again, we don't know what that data looks like when we're talking about this decision. So started to have a lot of those same concerns. We got, I think, a little bit off track with making a decision just based on what's the better site to build on, without having a good conception of what we're building and whether it's the best location, what value the location has.
But is Lisa right? Have we got too much to do to be ready for March?
I think we can't design something, first of all, before you own it, because the taxpayers are just gonna crucify us, okay? We need to figure out if I think we agree that that's a nice site, Sanborn. I still do, even though, actually, I just showed you it cost more. Because you're giving up an asset on Center Street for that site, and I think that the value is about $450,000 that you're giving up. Because I bet you that station is worth $350,000, and then you're gonna go spend another $100,000 to tear it down, which I don't understand that, because it's gonna cost more than that.
Didn't we have a quote there?
We have quotes.
You don't have a quote under section 106, and I'm telling you right
Well,
now.
106 only is if it's a federally listed property, and this
No.
is,
It is, if it is eligible for the National Historic Register. That building, I can assure you, is eligible for the National Historic Register. It's just that nobody's ever filed to have it put on the register. It is eligible and it's protected. You have to go through the process.
We'll have to have
Well,
the
but
legal
that,
folks look at that.
that goes
I
back
don't
to your
know.
other point, though. Why would we?
Why would we do that? Why wouldn't we just hand the building to Tilton?
Or if go back to the original thought, if you were going to build a single station solution down at Park Street, why wouldn't you just sell the building
Right,
and let somebody else deal with it?
right.
A few things to deal with there.
But
So we
still,
didn't, that's not included in that study, and it didn't occur to me until Matt Ozier said it in the meeting, but it never clicked. It didn't click with anybody else, that you have an asset here that's not in those numbers.
but one of the things to think about with Center Street is, number one, it technically has no parking. Because the parking spaces is under an agreement with the town of Tilton for the fire department to use. That does not mean that would carry over in the sale of a building. Since
It has a garage, somebody might buy it as a house.
What's that?
but I think you're making the same.
no,
valid
but
points,
I mean, now you're also
Picture
lowering the value of
what
that
we
building
own.
now
And
because
I
it has
thought
no
it was
parking.
Other than
But does the
15
building
feet
have
on
more
either
value?
side.
This isn't for
No,
us.
no.
But does the building have more value on the tax bucks
Is it?
as a privately owned building, or does it have more value to the town as parking space?
Well, because the town lost, 37 spaces over there.
Well, we're speaking for the town. But.
Well, I just happened to be watching the selectmen's meeting from late August last night, and they were talking about adding spaces in another area in downtown, and they were all saying they need spaces, they need parking, they need parking.
Yes,
Right.
yes we do.
Downtown Tilton needs more parking. Is someone knocking on the door?
No, that's backfire from a
Oh,
4-cylinder engine.
Paul, you didn't have much.
Well, I've said time and time again, I think we're jumping the gun, really. I really do. I think there are a lot of other things to look at. They had 9 calls today. The majority right around this section here. I got them right here. I can read where they were. There was one that was, I think, outside. Most of them were right around. I think there was 5 or 6 in Northfield. There was a couple here in Tilton. 9 of them.
Well, I know in one of the, committees I was on, where we studied the response time, and that was And yeah, I mean, the bulk of your
Calls
calls,
are right in here.
the highest percentage of calls are in the village area.
Yep.
But surprisingly, there is a high number that way. It diminishes as you head to the outer skirts of Northfield. And that information exists, but we've also tracked it internally two different ways. One in a circular fashion, and then there were years ago sectors that it was broken down into, and I don't know where that information is. But no, the village area is certainly your highest number of call volume.
It used to be.
And I'm sure that's changing, yes.
That's what I was
But I mean,
asking.
between the veterans home and, you know, all that stuff
Heard it.
included, places like the veterans home included in that village area. And I forget where the lines were drawn, but,
The Veterans Home is
4.5.
actually outside the village area now.
is it? Okay, yeah. Okay, then that would certainly change that, but I mean,
So-
The village
so
area
that's
going
those
up
condos out there,
Winter
but
Street
this is
kind of
the old
ends
travel lodge out here.
where the middle school driveway is.
Right.
That area,
This
somewhere in
is
that area
Willis
there.
Pond, this is the causeway.
But
So you-
as I watch the two towns develop, Paul, you know, is Cross Mill Road development,
Big one out there.
is that?
That's
over-
going.
Yeah, is that over 50?
55 plus. You're talking about 50,
50 plus.
oh, you're talking about the number of houses or the age?
The age group.
The age group is 55 plus.
And how many units?
It's somewhere around, it's somewhere around 80. I'm not exactly sure, but
Yeah.
I'm 70 to 84, somewhere in there.
Yep.
Units. There's 14 built right now, but they're flying on them.
It's,
And there was 52 new homes in Northfield in addition to that last year. There was only like 14 or something. I don't know the number in total.
What was that proposal off of 140, is that still a go, or is that?
The housing proposal,
There was a-
it never came through my desk, so my guess is it, so I never saw that one, so I
I don't know
don't,
if it was, I know there was a lot of
the
resistance.
only thing on 140 that I've seen is storage units right now for, not storage units, but it's like for a chip company, like the housing potato chips.
Oh,
That's,
Pretty light.
yeah. That's the only one I've seen on 140 that's actually come to my desk. Usually if they get passed, they come to my desk pretty quickly.
I think most of the new housing in Northfield is basically down the end of Shaker Road and those places there.
St. Doggedy, Shaker,
St. Doggedy, Shaker.
Cross Mill,
there's really
Dairy Lane,
there's only one area in Tilton that's left that would be suitable, two areas.
but I think is the future. I mean, I no question, you know, managing a fire department out of one station is ideal. I truly believe, with everything that's involved with the two communities, that it's got to be a two-station community, and it's got to have full-time people in both stations to handle, you know, what's being thrown at. Now, how you get to two stations with full-time people, you know, there, then there, then there, you know, I truly believe the winner is going to be two stations, and especially with the way the things are growing.
Do we get on the selectmen's agenda
We can.
for Tilton to,
You guys have a deal in place right now. I mean, it's gonna, I believe, they're gonna put a warrant article on the annual town warrant to seal the deal, I guess, if you will. But we can't give that building up until we're into it.
no, and it would have to be contingent upon
Yeah, and I'm sure,
completion of
I'm
the-
sure we'll give the lawyers the contingencies, they'll draw it up legally and turn it into a warrant article, and they'll vote on it, and then believe the fire district will probably vote on it at their annual district meeting as well to agree to it or whatever. Although,
What happens
Under
now if you
RSA
get one that?
under the
agrees?
RSA,
That's my point of stopping the
the
design.
thing is, the RSA doesn't require a district or a town meeting vote.
To accept it? you
To
mean?
accept it, the selectmen and the commissioners under the RSA have the authority to do so without a vote at either meeting. I have that on my desk. I would say 164 or something like that.
But the selectmen are looking to put it on the warrant.
They want to put on the warrant because they want
the
the
taxpayers.
taxpayers to have their say.
Is it binding or non-binding? If that's the right word. Like if they say no, does that kill,
It
if the
depends
voters say no, does that kill the
It
deal?
depends upon how you write the warrant article.
Right, yeah.
Well, it obviously
If
has
they
to
wanna do it
also
as a
be
poll.
contingent upon you being able to build a station.
Right, if the fire district doesn't approve a bond to build a building, then right.
It doesn't make sense.
Sounds like there's more legwork that needs to be done.
Sounds like there's a lot.
Well, I've
Especially
thought
with you
that-
throwing the historical thing there.
We're in a crunch, and I know when you do things, I hate to say it, haste makes waste, and I don't want that. I want something that's gonna pass, that we can present, that's solid.
Well, and let me ask you two, only because I don't have to work out of that station. Would we be okay for another year? Could we survive?
Been okay for how many years have we been there?
Exactly.
The only thing I will say, the sooner we get out of there, the better.
No question?
Because it's not an ideal environment health-wise
Agreed,
for anybody that works there,
agreed.
knowing what we know today about firefighting and stuff.
I also think that it leaves the district liable every day that that station is continued to be open, that all of a sudden we're gonna be forced to come up with something. And then we won't have the luxury of saying here or there, or this is this, we're gonna have, some government agency saying, you will build a station within X amount of time, and that's gonna be it, and,
Or fix the one you have to make it compliant.
yeah, but you can't, I mean.
Can't
But
do
by
it.
the same token,
We don't have any
Yeah.
footprint, we don't have any footprint on that building to add anything, we can't add an elevator, we
Can't
can't
put
do
trucks on the second floor.
Matchbox trucks.
but by the same token, with what Lisa's bringing up about the historical value, I mean, do we want to be halfway through
Is that
some
something that
type
will
of
array?
a negotiation and somebody said, you can't do that, or you have to do this, and 2 years to,
Is this something that these guys can look into?
Yes, they can look into it. I'll have Chuck look into it as well, the code enforcement officer for the town.
Right, and it doesn't put the fire department in good light if the town of Tilton taxpayer approves their warrant article to do that land swap. And then we build a building up there and then can't tear that one down.
and the deal's off. It kind of
Right,
sucks.
then you're, yeah,
Yeah.
Which goes back to your point.
right, we need to take a breath.
Well, there's people that say, oh, it'll be a
Evaluate
great restaurant, it'll be a great brewery or something like that, but, you know.
It's,
Well, that's what
Jesus.
it'll be
preservations
great.
would want, but
It's nothing right now. You can't, there's so many code issues. If you change a use
right.
from what it is now, makes you bring it to the current code. Easier to remove it and build something else there, if that's your plan. You can't change the
It's just
the
like,
use without
it's just
bringing
like
it out
Park
to the
Street,
current
if we
code.
touched Park Street, we have to bring it to code. You know, structure, building codes, talk about Pandora's box.
Yes, and now one of my, I just never got to it, is we should have a backup plan. Can we purchase that outright? Has that ever been talked about?
That was my goal, to purchase it for now,
Purchase one.
the land. Just buy it outright.
Right, we didn't have that conversation.
No, we never did.
The other thing we didn't have a conversation was, when you look at the Lorero location of the building on the property and the amount of space they're using, does that fit within what the town of Tilton was allowing us to use?
Well, I don't think so, because they were taking some of the parking lot up, and I already told them that that's not gonna happen.
Well, that's what I saw too.
Yeah, but they had the building way moved over, and they still had a whole bunch of land to the left of the building that, like, they should have just
No.
moved it over, but it seemed like
I think they were putting in setbacks here. You could probably go for a variance on the side setback on that lot.
Being a
Which site were you
municipality,
talking about?
we don't
Park Street
have
or-
to abide by,
No, I know,
Yeah.
but it's,
I don't know if I'm sure.
bigger.
Which
Well,
site are you talking about, Park
the-
Street or?
No,
Sanborn Run.
There's a side setback.
What we as a committee did, when we voted, I made it clear, we're voting on a site, we're not voting on the building
Right.
square footage or layout, or, we have not reviewed that as a committee. And that's still, I think the committee can continue to do that, looking at the space needs study and I think we need a plan. So you might get this now, but there's a room for an expansion here. You have to plan for growth, but we don't have to build for growth. Because you're not gonna get the taxpayer to build for growth. I think you've gotta get you get to a reasonable footprint that you can sell to the public. And that's part of that public, the public outreach, and that's where I was saying that we shouldn't don't do public outreach till we know what we're doing, otherwise we look like fools.
No, you just made an interesting comment about municipalities, so the setback rules may be. So, could you have that same conversation down there at Park Street if we built the new fire station over there? Can we leave that building alone? Because it's a municipality?
I don't know who the authority is, I mean, that, you probably could.
But then the other side of that is, do we look like we're being prudent with the taxpayers' money to be building this new building and then not taking care of what we already have?
Now, what was that again? I didn't.
I'm saying, if some of these rules vary because it's a municipality, going back to that question, if we build a new fire station down at Park Street, separate from the building that's already there, because it's a municipality, are we able to not have to update the current building that's there?
as long as you don't do any, it has to be separate. What you build has to be far enough apart from it that it doesn't affect the foundation wall with loads or anything like that. You probably don't have to do anything to the.
Because I just took it, I'm playing devil's advocate. If it was a 100-acre lot, and the current building was over on that corner, and we're gonna build a new building over on this corner, does code require us to update every building on the property?
No.
Right.
No.
So, if because it's a municipality, if we can build down there separate from the current building and leave it the way it is, because that's what we're saying we're gonna do. If you build up here at Sanborn Road, we just won't do anything to that building.
Well, there was,
And that question keeps being asked by people.
there was a previous commissioner suggested that we leave a gap, but I believe that the gap that, let's just say a 6-inch gap between old and new, you can't do it.
All right, make it 16 feet.
But I don't think we have the room to do it.
May I? The other problem is, you're housing very expensive equipment in a building. If we were to have a natural disaster, that building goes down, you cannot respond from that building.
Right.
Period. And that's
And I don't think
serious.
it's prudent to present that to the taxpayers going, we'll just look the other way on that.
So,
We're trying to be responsible too, and that's a valid argument. You got millions of dollars of equipment in there.
right, and not only that, you have a natural disaster, we want to be able to respond.
With
It's
that
a 40-year-old building, right? I mean, you
1986.
gotta improve it a little bit, and that's the problem. If you do a little, you gotta do a lot.
Right.
And you should.
No, I know, but it's
But
the
that's
other,
my,
the other thing, I was just doing math here. The square footage between their two things is off by like 1,200 feet. If you take this and this, it's this number.
Yeah.
And you take this plus this, it's that number.
Yes. Yeah, we noticed that, and again, we haven't gotten into the building size,
Between the two sites,
yeah.
because
That much,
1900,
the
yeah.
Park Street
19,000.
site,
Yeah.
that's 12,000.
if it was a one single station, would need to be larger because of the
But,
more
Shape of
things.
but what Eric is saying, it's only like 1,000 square feet difference.
Yeah, it is. It is only about 1,000 square feet, and that's the additional storage and stuff that we need at one location, whereas right now it's split up into two locations in small areas or
Well,
something like that.
Here's another question, just to investigate, since if it sounds like we might not rush into this. There was a question of access onto the state road. Would DOT allow that access?
Onto,
School
And
Street?
Park Street.
Park Street. Why did I say School Street? Park Street. Would DOT allow us to access?
I don't know, that, we haven't broached that.
No, but that's something to consider. If they're gonna say no, well, that's gonna
If
kind
you're gonna
of
put.
Well,
push your hand.
we already have access on the Park Street from where we are now. If we move it closer to the on-ramp, maybe they don't care, or maybe they.
Because they
do. I
usually
don't
want 400-foot line of sight in both
know.
directions.
We haven't looked at that.
No, but that's something to consider because there's a slight corner there, at least
Yeah, there is.
looking here, and they may say, well, wait a minute, coming from 93, you know, I don't know what that, how much of that, you know, now we're gonna have to do road reconstruction, I don't know.
Well, and I brought up, the other, one of the concerns I have down there at Park Street is where are people gonna park?
Yeah, but there's gonna be stuff moved around, I don't know. This doesn't show the property line, so it's tough. Or maybe this is the property line.
I kind of know where the property line is there.
Maybe it does show it here.
I think it does.
Yeah, that like, it's very light.
Mhm.
Is that the, chief, is that,
Right.
That's the corner, yep.
yeah?
Out in, like in the
Because you
middle
got
of
that
the.
salt shed that's.
You think it's in the middle of the DPW parking lot, and it is. That's where the corner is.
Yeah.
So they're in the middle of their parking lot. Wow.
We own it.
See, this is,
They
this
just drive
right
through
here
it.
is the property
They
line.
use it.
So like that salt shed is
Yeah.
probably,
The salt shed is like
5
1
feet.
feet onto their property line.
very, very, very tight.
Well, the gas pumps were always on our property.
Yeah, they were.
Okay, so if the gas pumps were on our property and there's pollution there, does that become a Northfield liability?
No,
No,
those
it's
have
all
been
been
removed. and
mitigated.
it's
Oh, okay, but I
already-
know there was talk about pumps, so.
Yeah.
Those tanks were removed, there was no leakage there, anything like that. I think they were talking about other tanks that may have been there with houses with heating oil, fuel oil for heating and stuff like that.
Yeah.
We
Because
did
the
find
schools
one
used to-
tank,
Everyone used to use those pumps, the diesel
Yeah.
pumps. Yeah.
there was one tank that a horse actually put his foot through
Set
it.
through, yeah.
Yeah, and that's been opened up and filled in. I don't think the tank was actually removed.
If I remember
Just
correctly,
crushed
there
it
were
and
3
put it back in.
houses.
I thought there were two.
I was thinking 3,
Two,
but.
I thought. Because Diane Charlie lived in the front.
Right, two or 3, there's minimum 2, yeah, I think you may be right.
Oh, and there's areas here. Boy.
Well,
Okay, here's my other concern, when we talk about timeline. And I don't know all the details, but I know that Northfield suggested, the chief has suggested a new police station. I don't think they'll have time to get it on next year's ballot, but now, the 2025, when we could possibly be looking for a station as well. We'll just,
I mean, there's a lot of things working against us. Interest rates are high, bond rates are high,
Costs are high.
Cost of
cost
high.
of
Cost of-
construction is high.
It's crazy.
costs are gonna stay high.
It's
Right.
not gonna come down.
No, I've never said it's coming down. Realistic.
I guess my option is to step back and look at some more options and find out about the land up there. I mean, I have no problem purchasing that right now, if they'd let us do that. I don't think they will. I don't think they'll let us do it though. They want this building.
I think that's why they proposed the deal.
That's,
that they
I'm
did.
sure it is. I'm sure it is.
And that deal would be okay, but don't have you tear it down.
How about if we give them?
Give them the building is the best.
Well, I think we need to find out about historic.
Yeah, I have to.
If it doesn't have to go through that process, through some miracle, if it doesn't have to go through it, okay, then we can stick with Plan A. But if
You will have people that won't want you to tear it down, and that could kill your fire station. Your new fires. There are people that, I mean, it's a part of the history of the town of Tilton. So
That's
there
been
are
here
going
since
to be
18
people that are going to be against tearing it down. Why make
1867.
them against your fire station, your new fire station? Let
funny what
Let
people
whoever
do.
wants it torn down deal with that as well.
So I guess we should come up with something.
But I think we need to give a directive to the chief
Yeah.
to find out.
Right now, I'm gonna have Lorero, and I'll have Chuck look into this Section 106 Federal Historical Preservation Act on that building, see what is or what is not required to tear it
What
down.
about the historical society?
The Historical Society is not a legal entity.
That's true.
It's
It's the State Historic Preservation Office that you would require this. That's who you would go through.
Yeah.
So I guess that's where we ought to start first.
Well, I think while we're at it, just so we know, I think somebody should address that curb cut at Park Street if you were gonna have additional
Well, I think
driveway
just
out
some
in
due
front
diligence.
of the
You
new station. You should know whether the
Call
state's
district.
gonna let you do that.
call District 3 and see,
Yeah.
and say, hey, you know, we don't have a plan, but this is what we're looking at, and just out of curiosity, would it be?
So I had, look into the preservation thing, the District 3, the curb cut on Park Street.
You said you had call data, updated call data?
Yeah, I presented it all last year at the district meeting. It's still in the PowerPoint.
No, but is there a way to show what the how the response times would change if you moved the starting points? Does the system have an easy way of doing
No.
that?
What about if you?
Other than, I'd have to, I'll look at that, but the system's not
What
gonna
if
do
you like
I mean,
put
Paul-
pins on a Google map?
Paul made, I looked at the calls that you referenced today. Every
That
single call was,
existed, but it was done by a computer.
Except for one.
every single call
We had a-
today was in Northfield except for one.
2008.
We had a guy on a committee that worked actually for Hannaford, and they have a company that tracks distances and analyzes where shoppers shop, and he actually turned it over to him,
He did, yeah.
Ben
Ben.
Lavelle. And, he, showed average travel times from point A to point B, and it was really rather interesting. And the other thing that he, brought up off the subject, that they studied market basket, when they do their studies, and they average 300 automobiles in an hour. Coming to and leaving
Yeah.
market basket on, I thought he said an average day.
Oh, not on a Saturday, probably, or Friday night is probably higher than that.
Exactly.
But I think we should be.
But he did all that study, and it exists
I think
someplace.
someone's
I'll
gonna
look for
ask
an
that
old book I
question.
had.
What is moving to Park Street due to response times? What is moving up to Sanborn Road due to response time? And if you see your average response time increases by 30 seconds because of moving to Park Street, but they increase by a minute and 30 seconds because you're up here, you got to be able to respond to that.
All those people, over the years, all you heard is response times, what it takes if you're having a heart attack, how long you have to be there. And people remember that.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's gotta be looked into, I mean, cause it
Well,
is critical.
no matter where we go, we're moving further away
From some calls.
from some calls, but the majority of the high volume of the calls, no matter which one you go to, you're moving further away from it.
Well, every Saturday at 3 o'clock, they're going to Highland Mountain Bike Park. I mean,
Absolutely.
So you're moving closer.
you're moving closer.
Yeah,
So, whenever you move and you stay in one location, there's winners and losers in response time.
absolutely.
And so I can put a map out that shows like a 5-minute response time from here, where that reaches out to, and a 5-minute response time from there, where it reaches out to. There's probably going to be overlap in that. I can show.
Can you overlay that on top of the current calls?
You know, I'm not a graphic designer, but I can probably figure out something somehow.
Is there a way that you can extract just addresses?
There's this
of
software
calls?
out there that we don't buy. It's called ESRI. That does all that stuff. But it's.
We had a GIS study done in 2008, and it had that, it had the heat maps. It showed if we moved here and there. That data's old, very, very old data now, and it was pretty expensive if I remember right.
Yeah.
I think the other, about your comment about the bike park, they have EMTs on site.
Yes, they have their own they're
EMTs, yeah.
licensed EMS agency.
So they are
Non-transport.
getting some level of,
Oh, no, that's,
of aid up there prior to us arriving.
Actually, they're pretty good up there.
If you need a splint,
it's like going to Loon. It's like going to Loon and you fall down. They have an orthopedic there, but you know if your elbow's sticking out the socket, they're going to call the ambulance. And
So we as a commission revised the charge to the committee several months ago. And that was, I have it here, I can dig it out, was to bring a proposal to the taxpayers for a facility that would meet our current needs.
Yes.
So if we're not gonna do that, we have to discuss that. And I know Paul is pushing, you know, trying to move us forward, and, you know, admittedly, we're behind we're way off on the calendar, and
are we going to lose committee members if we say, oh, we're going to slow down the process again?
or
Well, we
more
started
importantly,
with-
are we gonna lose the vote of the people if we rush it?
You're right.
Well, it's,
Can I ask a question? If I can figure out how to put these response circles on the map, what time frame do you want the circle to be? 4 minutes, 5 minutes? Our average response time currently is 7 minutes, 16 seconds. Do you want it to be that? Like, I mean, do you want it to be like
yeah, but that's-
90% of that 17?
When you say that 7 minutes, 16 seconds, that's district wide.
Yeah.
That's the average, but, okay, we know that if,
So I'm asking, what do you want that circle to represent? Or do you just want me to do it and say, this is what it is? It's
Well,
5
I
minutes,
think
or
if
4
the-
minutes, or 6 minutes.
If you're doing the current Center Street and then you did Park Street and Sanborn Road, and the circles are so big that they just encompass everything, it's not helpful data.
Right. That's why I want to know what you want.
well, I think you have to find out what does it add for response time moving to,
And
Well,
Park
it depends
Street.
upon where you are, where you're responding to.
no, but you know that it's gonna add so much,
So,
on average, it's
How
gonna
about
average.
I can do a response time from Sanborn Road to Park Street? No, Sanborn Road to Center Street, and then I can do a response time from Park Street to Center Street. I can do that too. That's easy.
1.8 miles from Sanborn Road
Yeah,
to Center Street and about 0.8 of a mile
yeah. It's,
from Park Street to Center Street.
Then you have different type of traffic conditions.
No question about it.
Yeah.
But one thing that we do is we have the ability to control traffic.
Yeah.
Somewhat, exactly. Exactly.
We have a huge bottleneck in town. That stretch of road from Cumberland Farms up to
Park Street.
the highway.
Hey, let's put a roundabout in. Just kidding.
Right here.
How'd that go?
I think that got,
But if you had an accident that tied up the road there,
well, if you have a major accident that blocks the road,
right? How do you respond?
take for instance, whenever they're gonna do this project on Route 3, how's that gonna affect response times?
It's gonna, well, it depends upon how they're gonna mitigate the traffic. Is it gonna be just traffic in one direction for 5 minutes and direct, like they do now? Like if they're putting a new telephone pole down on Laconia Road, okay, you sit there for 5 minutes and then let 5 minutes of traffic go this way, then they sit and let 5 minutes of traffic go that way, and it's a you-know-what show. If they're gonna do something like that, maybe to help mitigate that way, you have to have radio communications with the people controlling the traffic saying that, you know, okay, we're responding in this direction, make sure you keep it going this way, type of deal. But we'll cross that bridge when we get there.
I guess we should come to some agreement, what we want. We want to wait, do we want to find out about this?
I think these answers gotta be answered anyways.
I think so too, I
One way
really
or
do.
the other.
And if, you know, whatever it takes, I got a feeling we're kind of jumping the gun, but that's my opinion.
Was there a consensus of the committee that,
On the time frame?
yeah,
No, I think we were just choosing basically a site. I think we all, most of us agreed that the Sanborn Road is a nice site, and I still feel that way. But you can't do anything till you own it, and there are obstacles to own it. But I think the committee can still keep going and start looking at the space needs on both. We can look at both sites and say, because, you know, we have time now. I don't think you can get, you were already behind schedule anyway, because even the contract signing put it months behind schedule. I don't know that you're gonna get to a point of a vote in March on any site. But I think stay the course, don't stop, but don't pay the contractor to continue in a direction that we may not be able to go. That's my point. Don't design anything for either site until we know which site we're using and own the sites. I mean, we own Park Street, so if you wanted to, you could pick that, but that's against what we all chose. Or not all of us. One person did choose.
Sounds like
Park
a
Street.
realistic goal for this year is secure a piece of property.
And the committee can still look at we didn't get a chance to really look at the building square footage and footprint on either site. I mean, we all probably individually did, but
And you know, if you lose some people, so be it. I mean, it's unfortunate to lose the people that have been on there, but I mean, if you can't, because it's going to be a hard sell. I mean, it's.
There's more here.
Okay, Alan.
we need to do it right, and that takes time.
well, I know when I was on the police building committee, we delayed it a year to make sure we did do it right. We didn't rush. But part of that was the piece of land had to go through a process that we had no control over through the archdiocese to purchase that land. They had to go, it was, you know, it was like a committee that went once every other month. We had to wait, you know, it was like you had to wait. You know, we had an agreement in principle, but we, you know, it was.
You had to wait for their process to.
Yeah, we had to wait
To
for
work
their
its way
process, and
through.
there's nothing you could do to speed up that process. This is the way it's done, and this is the way we're gonna do it, and that's the way it is.
Catholic Church,
And it was,
Been around
and it was,
thousands of years.
it worked out, obviously, you know, so.
Well, I guess, Lisa, I'd like to ask you the question though, and I've always respected your experience, but it sounds, are we still at the level where the town just basically wants to swap the property, but we're in charge of paying for having that building disposed of? Is that, are we still somewhere on?
That was the offer that they made to us, was we would give them that piece of property with the building removed and the space paved.
And we would get that piece of
And we would
property.
get that piece
We
of
would own
property.
that, they would own that.
And that was, I think you said you got estimates, Chief? Or-
Yes.
And that was,
72,000 to tear it down and remediate anything asbestos, lead, whatever was in there. That included all the remediation. And then there was another, I think it was like $14,000 or $16,000 to pave it.
so we're looking at $90,000.
It was like $90,000, yeah.
So that's certainly, I guess, Lisa, a reasonable price to pay for that piece of property. But
You're giving up.
your caution comes from where and why?
Because it is eligible for the National Register.
Right.
The state is, the Preservation Office is going to want you to save that building and repurpose it. And so they're gonna force you through their process, and you'll have a historian do, you probably will be able to tear it down, but you're gonna have to go through what we call a Habs hair report. It has to be studied, you have to have public hearings. That process in itself takes time.
Sure.
Whereas if you just sold that building to somebody, you might get $350,000 and you could purchase property with that money. So we're forgetting that the value of that building, even though we don't think it has value. You could probably sell it. Someone would love to have that, be there. You see train stations that people buy because they want to live in an old train station. You might have somebody that wants to buy that piece of property and live in an old fire station.
Doesn't have a pole, has
Exactly, they don't want it.
So there's nobody that's gonna chain themselves to the pole. I'm just saying,
Okay,
there's a
so that's your
process.
caution is
The
that.
process is, we're gonna move forward with design of something that we might not be able to do. And and we've done that before, and we just can't keep doing the same thing over and over. If we owned the property, or if we have a fallback plan, okay, we can't do this, will Tilton sell us that piece of property for a price? That's not a bad thing to have. You need a fallback plan, because you
Okay.
could go and spend all this money designing a station up on Sandburn Road, and in the end, you can't build it. And that is not what the taxpayers want to hear. I mean, as a committee, we can keep going and we can keep looking at it, because it's not costing the taxpayer money. But when you have somebody designing something, it is costing the taxpayer money.
But as the chief said earlier, we gotta keep that place operational till we got something to move into.
Right.
Right.
If, you'd have to make the sales and more contingent upon
Oh, yeah. So,
Did they have like draft verbiage of the warrant article?
no, I don't think so.
it. Not even clear.
I don't think it, and
Okay. You just know that their
That's what they
intention
said.
is to
yes,
put a warrant.
yeah.
And what if the taxpayers of Tilton just don't approve it?
Well, let's wait to find out if it's binding or not binding.
Depends upon, because it depends upon how you write the warrant article. But like I said, I did the research. By law, they don't have to get town meeting approval to sell it.
And tear it down.
We have to find out more about that. I know I know what you have, but, we have to know that too.
But again, you don't want the town doing something that the voters distinctly don't want to do. Doesn't help the cause.
No.
I don't think you'd find too many voters in the, just anecdotally, being around here for 10 years now, I don't think you would find too many people that would vote against it, because in the end, they're gonna get a new fire station out of it. And there'd still be a fire station in Tilton, whereas if the district decided to do everything on Park Street, almost everybody in Tilton's gonna vote against it, and it's gonna fail in that respect.
But all it takes is that one person.
So I don't think you shouldn't still pursue that site. I'm just saying, make sure you own it before you design it.
Or
There's
contingent.
some contingent plan that Tilton will sell it to you for X dollars.
But you have the ability to acquire it one way or the other.
Right, before you move, before you spend more on a design.
I think they said once they'd lease it to us for $1.
Well, and I don't know what the deal is with the diocese, and I've known people that have taken 100-year leases, and it's
Well, that's what that land was at one time. They put
Originally, it was.
sure.
the $1 a year
And
lease for 100. I don't know,
I've also
20
heard
years.
that if you ever get involved with one of those 100-year leases, there ain't no getting out of it. You know, you can try to do whatever you want to do, but those 100-year leases are pretty solid. You know,
50 years, it'll be none of our problems. So-
careful what you
Plenty
say.
on,
47 years and we still got a problem. We're in the same place.
Well, yeah.
I think he was thinking of something else.
Yeah, no, I know that.
I mean,
Well, I guess that we should look into them things before we go any further. I mean,
that
you
land
guys
can
can
only be
keep
used for
going,
medicinal purposes.
Correct. That's what I understood. Yep.
So, can't put a Taco Bell
Right. No
or Chick-fil-A.
non-profit organization.
Has to be for
Municipal.
municipal use.
Yep.
So you want the building committee to keep moving forward, and while this information is gathered for
Yeah,
us.
yeah, we'll find out. But I think Lisa's right. I think it's not gonna make it this year. I really do. I think we're just,
I mean, we're already almost October.
yeah.
Yeah. And you have to have public hearings with us in January, I think. for
January.
bond.
Well, January, some.
I know she gave us a calendar, but I don't know.
January and February, there's like a month period where you have to have a public hearing.
Or maybe it was
for bond.
February.
The last day is in February something, that to hold a bond hearing
Early February.
for this purpose.
so I
For any
think we should
purpose.
keep
A bond
going.
hearing that, for a bond over
We should
$100,000.
keep going. If by some miracle, everything pans out wonderfully, you might get there, but I very doubtful. But let's stay the course.
Agreed.
Is everybody all right with that?
Mhm.
I'm fine with it. Eric? I guess that answered the
Why don't
question.
you make it in the form of a motion so it's official and not just like anecdotal?
And you'll also have to tell the railroad to stop work. That's probably the most important.
It's on my calendar to call them 9 o'clock tomorrow morning.
All right, so what do you want that motion to look like?
That's what I'm trying to think in my head. I should write it down. That'd be easier. Have the Lurero pause the design of the fire station. The building committee.
Do you want them to stop working with us entirely? I
Yeah,
don't
actually,
know.
they're already paused, aren't they? They're not moving forward in any direction.
I think they were waiting for some direction tonight. I think they were getting ready to do like schematics on the layout.
Of Sandwood.
Whichever this
Of whichever-
site, the
Whichever
commission-
site,
I don't think, they weren't going to
Well,
you know, mechanical engineering, electrical, or any of that stuff.
Right.
I think they just wanted to.
But I
kinda
think
like-
we could continue to talk about the space needs that they came up with, and
Correct.
we could look at,
We could look at that. But I think they were looking for a direction as to what were they were gonna prepare plans for a site, whether it be Park Street or Sanborn. So that portion of their scope gets paused, but we still want them, if we're looking at the space needs, to answer questions and things like that.
the building committee to,
Continue to look at the space needs.
you know, fall back on the Sanborn Road property ownership.
Plan B, all the Plan B. Look into a Plan B, but that'd be up to the commissioners, but I will guide you through that as well, too.
would fall back on Sanborn Road, what?
Fallback plan
If we're not able to
Oh,
Do the
demolish
land
the
swap.
current fire station. Plan B.
I think purchase would be better than lease,
Purchase.
because I don't know, building
Is there
something on
potential
something
for a
that you
purchase?
don't
You know, look
own.
into purchase potential or however you
Great,
word that.
would grade against me personally, but,
fallback plan if
pursue
unable to
purchase.
demolish Center Station.
as the fallback.
yeah.
I think it needs, yeah, okay.
Can they do that?
Historic significance of Center Street Station.
With their arrangement with the diocese?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. As long as it stays
Yeah.
for
As
municipal
long as
use.
it's a municipal use.
Yep.
They can do whatever they want with it.
What do you got so far?
Have Lorero pause the design of the fire station, continue space needs
Evaluation.
evaluation. Okay. The building committee to continue to look at space needs
Till such a time as,
until location is determined. Fallback plan if unable to demolish Center Street Station, which kind of leads into,
Mm-hmm.
do we need to, what else? Historic certificates of Center Street, determined.
Well,
Hmm?
Yeah. Chief's got that in
yeah,
there.
I got, I'm gonna look that, I'm looking that up anyways.
Chief's gonna look at response time.
Yep.
We're gonna find out about Park Street curb cut.
I'm just gonna add that
This one's list the curb cut, Plan B for
to,
for the land if we can't tear the building down.
what was before the curb cut?
Response time.
Response time.
Some type of graphic that will show it.
Changes for each location.
Right, it's just gotta put that into a motion. In no particular order.
Alright, so we're directing the chief to do this? No. This is just a general.
I'm
There's a
doing this
direction
anyways,
to-
whether you direct me or not.
No, I know, this is,
You probably should put it in a motion to, because people are gonna see it
Right.
and make sure we,
yeah. I almost just want to
So you
say,
have a motion to the chief, and then you have a motion to the committee. Is that how we were doing it?
Nice.
Rather than one motion, correct?
yeah, so
If you were-
what's this to the chief, so
A
this
good
is to the,
wordsmith, you could do it in one,
But it makes it difficult.
yes.
All right, so this is the committee. This is the chief. We'll
It's
start
as
with-
simple as make a motion to have the chief deal with the action items as discussed in this evening and report back. And then have the,
Well, some of them are for the committee though.
right,
Specifically.
and then have the committee continue, separately, the committee to
Would that be
continue.
the fallback plan, would that be the committee, or would that be,
I would think that would be up to the,
That would be for us.
It's
That's the
actually, I'll explore it, but it'll be the commissioner's
Yeah.
decision.
Right.
the chief has determined any historic significance. The chief is the Curb Street response giant. So really, it's only one thing for the committee, and everything else is for the chief and the commissioners. Right?
Basically, the committee is keep going. Thank you very much for a good job.
All right. I'll not rephrase it. I'll just say, I'll make a motion that we direct the building
Committee.
committee to continue to look at space needs until the location is determined.
now second it. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Then, I'll make a motion that we have the chief report back to us on the following. Have Lorero pause the design of a fire station, continue space needs evaluation. Come up with a fallback plan if unable to demolish the Center Street station, which falls in line with determine if any historic significance to Center Street station. Find out about possible curb cut, expansion of our existing curb cut on the Park Street station, and response time changes if we're based on each location.
I'll second it. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Guess we beat that to death now.
And thank you, Lisa, for being part of the committee and watching out for us, because that's something I never would have even thought of.
Good to have somebody with somebody who knows.
Exactly.
Doesn't always
Some
on
life
that.
Make sure you
experience out there.
I-
Express, at least for me, that, thank the committee for all the hard work they've done, because I've done it
We
several
thank
times
the committee for
myself,
all
and
their
it's
hard work
discouraging
they do. And we
sometimes.
And hopefully it don't discourage the people on there anyhow, but
Should I contact Paul with an
We
update or?
have a meeting next week.
No,
We have a meeting
Oh,
next
no,
week.
October
that's
2nd,
October 2nd is
That's
a
next
meeting.
week.
Next week.
Next week.
next Monday.
Wait, don't we have a meeting?
And we have a
The
meeting
third.
on
The
this
third,
Tuesday.
I don't know when the first or the second. Oh, okay.
next meeting, commissioners meeting's on the 3rd, next building committee meeting's on October 2nd. Both
Probably
here.
talk to Paul to let him know that we're gonna continue with
And I don't think
space.
he's gonna be there at that next meeting, is he?
I don't recall.
I'll call him tomorrow.
okay, we all set with that? Any old business? Oh, I'm sorry, chief's report. Yes, none?
None.
Okay, old business. Recommendations on the building committee, I think we beat that to death.
Today was only about the
Yeah.
building.
That's good
Motion to
verbiage.
adjourn
I would
would
have said
probably be in order.
we had a
Lengthy discussion on it.
fruitful discussion.
New business. Any new
These lights
business?
keep flicking?
Yes.
Okay. Just want to make
You don't have a stroke.
All right.
That's all it is.
Okay, review
TIAs.
minutes. There were none. Public comment from members of the district, employees of the district. Hearing none? That's it.
I make a motion to adjourn.
That's been moved and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned at 7:07. Have a nice day.
Thank you, everybody.
So, Lisa, I don't remember, you remember the old Snell's warehouse? next to the dealership.